Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you will have realised from the activity on the airfield, we are just a few minutes now away from the start of day 2 of our PE Day anniversary air show here at Duxford. And your lead commentator this afternoon is, of course, Ben Donnell.
Thank you very much to Colin Wilshire, who has ever joined me throughout the afternoon at this Duxford VE Day anniversary air show. A very warm welcome once again on behalf of IWM Duxford to this event marking the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe. It was, of course, a story in which Duxford played a crucial role. First, as a Royal Air Force fighter station from the beginning of hostilities until early 1943. And then from there until, in fact, December 1945, a few months after VE Day, as the US Army Air Force fighter base, Station 357 of the Army Air Force. Home of the 78th Fighter Group, operating initially P-47 Thunderbolts, and then P-51 Snowboats. Of course, Duxford was an RAF airfield since the RAF's very own section on the 1st of April 1918. In fact, it was formed just before that, as a Royal Flying Corps station, before the Royal Flying Corps and the Royal Naval Air Service were merged to form the new Royal Air Force. In this VE Day anniversary air show, we therefore aim to not just display the aircraft of the Second World War, but also to show you something of the development of aviation from the previous World War, from 1914 to 18, through until the end of World War II. Because there are very direct links that can be traced from the Great War of 1918 through to the start of the Second World War and beyond. Well done, aviation, in terms of telling that story, wouldn't be complete without reflection on the early flying and fighting machines. So in this display we will be presenting aircraft from World War I and the interwar period, as well as those of World War II. Plus, of course, there will be interludes from modern-day aerobatic aircraft and modern military machines, courtesy of the Royal Air Force and the Army Air Corps. Well, the initial trio of Duxford-based aircraft have taxied out down the east end of the airfield, the motorway end, all three from the fighter collection, one of the main Duxford-based private operators of airworthy historic aircraft. These two take part in our J-Day tribute, because of course we also remember this weekend the fact that World War II didn't finish with the U-Day, the 8th of May 1945. The war in the Pacific Theatre carried on until the J-Day at August, and the trio of aircraft are going to take off and initially go home prior to our display stop, which will be the second item on the programme. We'll collect that particular anniversary as well.
We should take a moment here, Ben, to appreciate what VE Day meant to the population of England, of the UK, and of course of Europe. It was the end of 6 years fighting, when the country and the world was in real peril.
It was indeed. When you think back to the particularly dark days of 1940, German invasion plans at their height, plans thwarted by the success of the Allied campaign in the Battle of Britain, and we do remember all of the campaigns as Allied campaigns, because of course, while as France hated the Battle of Britain, the Royal Air Force was a major contributor. A large number of overseas countries provided pilots, Poland more than any other, followed by New Zealand, and then a host of others. And that was very much in the modern phase, but those were very, very uncertain days for Britain, and so it was with that mixture of weariness and relief that finally, after some 5.5 years of more or less total war, Britain approached victory in Europe.
And we talk about the loss of life, and it's a very large number indeed, but to realise that it was an individual experience, wasn't it? It affected people individually, even though we talk about ourselves.
It did, and those individual stories are amongst those you can find around the IWM Duxford site, of course, for those who served on the home front or those who served on frontline flying squadrons, for example, ground crew and pilots and the like. Those stories come through very strongly, and they're stories that we always try and recall in air displays here. Expect, as regards the weather situation today, we should say for it to be basically what we've got now, bits of rain, rather cloudy. We'll have to see how we go. There may be requirements for short notice cancellations or modifications of the shows, depending on exactly what the conditions are at the time. But we will of course do our best within all of the necessary safety measures to prevent flying the show for a week today, and then what will hopefully in remembrance of the events that were coming.
So, obviously back in the day, these aircraft would have flown whether it was no matter what. But in today's world, to respect not only the duties of flying for freedom pilots, but safety as possible.
Indeed so, and those three aircraft in the VJ Day tribute which received our special sound beam salute formation, showing out now. Today we'll be taking off from left to right, so from the motorway end towards the warfare hall end. These three aircraft didn't just serve in the Pacific Theatre, of course. These types also much in use in Europe, together with the likes of the Mediterranean and North African theatres. The formation leader has just declared rolling in 5 seconds. The call the lead pilot gives to the tower here. Leading them off will be the Grumman FM2 Wildcat. Tubby, stubby little fighter.
That's the P40 Warhawk.
Outstanding levels of accuracy by Peter Jackson's The Vintage Aviator Limited in New Zealand. And we are delighted that the weather conditions are permitting this spectacle today. A combination of aeroplanes we haven't previously seen at Duxford. We remember World War I during this centenary period of the 1914-18 war in particular. Of course, it was thought of as the war to end all wars. As things turned out, events turned out rather differently. It was in 1917 that construction began of a new airfield for the Royal Flying Corps on this site. It opened in March 1918, just prior to the establishment on the 1st of April of the new Royal Air Force. Initially, RAF Duxford was a training base. It didn't become a fighter station until 1924, but of course it played an extremely important role nonetheless.
I think it was at Duxford, Bardo almost.
And two of the three aircraft in this formation are representative of types that flew from RAF Duxford during its early days. The one rolling first and about to get into the air to lead this formation did not, but it was a very important fighter nonetheless. The Newport 17 Scout. That's also a very fine replica. And then following it, from the World War I Aviation Heritage Trust, the Royal Aircraft Factory pt8, and then the unmistakable shape of the Shuttleworth Collection's Bristol 2B fighter, the Brisket.
quickly interrupt here just for a moment because this is rather urgent. There were some passengers with classic wings, passengers at Norris, Coleman, Bloomfield, I think it's Rung and Derbyshire. They flew at about 1:10 past. I'm afraid that you've picked up the wrong bag, or one of you has. Can you please check your belongings and return to the Classic Wings tent so that we can fix that? That's passengers Norris, Coleman, Bloomfield, Rung and Derbyshire.
Thank you, Pauline. So there's the Newport passing down the flight line, and then in front of us the pt8 and the Bristol 2B. The Newport, as you might see, has quite an interesting wing configuration. It's called a sesquiplane configuration, otherwise known as a 1.5 wings design, whereby one wing, in this case the lower one, is smaller than the other. This was an excellent fighter. It had good top speed, good rate of climb, and it's pretty agile. It first materialised in March 1916 and went into service with France's military air arm, the Aviation militaire, with whom it proved well able to take on the then dominant German fighter of the time, the Fokker E3, the Eindecker. Numerous French and British aces flew it, plus the US volunteer-manned Escadrille Lafayette, in whose marking this replica, built by its current owner, Rob Gallagher, with the late John Day, carries. You can see the Escadrille Lafayette's famous Indian head logo on the aircraft side as it passes by this time. Also the emblem of the fighter collection, of course, and it's still a squadron in the French Air Force today, operating the Yamaha 2000M nuclear strike aircraft. In the context of the history of Duxford, the other two aeroplanes here really are significant. The Royal Aircraft Factory pt8 family, initially constructed as a reconnaissance platform, a two-seater that served in various versions throughout the First World War. It was considered rather vulnerable in its early days, but this is a later version, the pt8 model, which tries to improve on the earlier versions. It's two, first appeared in 1916. It was still somewhat underarmed for its intended purposes, but they were used extensively by the Royal Flying Corps in France as part of reconnaissance and artillery spotting squadrons. Here at Duxford, BE2s first appeared in 1918, and they were operated by a training unit and the 35 Training Depot Squadron, which stayed here until April 1920. In fact, as part of the IWM Duxford static collection, you can see an example of the earlier pt8C model in the Battle of Britain hangar, along with a second example of the aircraft you see flying with the pt8 here, the Bristol fighter. The Brisket, as it became known, started out as the Bristol F2A. That, when it went into combat, proved to some degree a little ineffective. But they modified the tactics, making use of what was for the time the aircraft's excellent manoeuvrability, and achieved the forward straight and level, close formation flying, using the aircraft's rear gun, employing it more as a conventional fighter with the forward gun. And as such, the F2B model, which came into service in March 1917, proved outstanding. At Duxford, Bristol fighters were stationed here with number 2 Flying Training School from 1920, and also the Cambridge University Air Squadron, which was established here in 1925. Of course, there are many different kinds of flying training organization already introduced by that point. University Air Squadron is something rather new. One instructor on the Cambridge UAS at that time was Joseph Cox, who recalled some memories of some of the students he encountered to an IWM researcher some years ago.
They were all Donald's women of his time, very nice young people. Sometimes they were easy to but I mean rather than nice one. They were very nice. They when it came out of the front, they were all like,
If you could in that year, you could easily put that must be fighting or challenge.
and I can't think of one that really falls on the top. Congo, that I went that was up to me. It's up to the instructor to get the understanding of it. And sometimes it's quite hard. I mean, you do a lot of something or something else, and that's what you get to improve.
Some recollections there of between the wars, Cambridge University Air Squadron instructor Joseph Cox were flying from RAF Duxford and students we came across in that period. The pt8, leading the Bristol fighter here, is, as I mentioned, a superb reproduction built by the Vintage Aviator Limited in Wellington, New Zealand. It's now operated by the World War I Aviation Heritage Trust, which in this centenary period in particular is seeking to increase awareness of First World War aviation and facilitate the operation in the UK of suitable replica aircraft. This is one of them. They operate two. This one's based at Bicester in Oxfordshire. Newly restored and newly revived that historic airfield as Bicester Heritage with an increasing fleet of based aircraft. Also, the World War I Aviation Heritage Trust has another pt8. It's based at the historic and also resurrected First World War airfield at St Mary's in Essex. The trust very heavily involved there in the revival of that airfield and its restoration to increasingly authentic condition.
Well, as Tim says, you're seeing them go by.
Not just the airframe, the pt8, this is a very fine reproduction. The same goes to the 90 horsepower i1A engine. The levels of craftsmanship involved in the Vintage Aviator's reproductions really is astonishing. The Bristol Fighter, however, is an original. It's been part of the Shuttleworth Collection's fleet at Old Warden in Bedfordshire for many years. This one was built in 1918, but it didn't see First World War service. However, Bristol's carried on with the post-World War I RAF for some years. And this one was used by number 208 Squadron, based out in Turkey. It wasn't sold on until 1936. So the pt8 in the Bristol, making for Old Warden. The pt8 was in the hands of Rob Millenship, and the Bristol Fighter, the Shuttleworth Collection's chief engineer Jean-Michel Munn. It was Rob Gall-Galliers in the new pod. But now, it's to the first part of one of the centerpieces of today's flying program, our VJ Day tribute. Even when VE Day was celebrated with the mixture of relief and weariness across Europe, for many, World War II was still not over. Japan continued to fight in the Pacific, and thousands more lives were still to be lost in a campaign that began with the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor